Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. And today's video is a True Crime Corner video. And this video will be up a little later in the day as this morning. But it's, morning here. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning here. But it will be up later on this afternoon as I have been trying to go back and forth and keep an eye on little dude because today is his first full day of school, normal hours from 8:30 to 3:15, and it's virtual. So, and he's not thrilled. He doesn't like the idea. So, just bear with me. My thoughts are like torn between two people, and I'm trying to, you know, keep the thoughts separate and trying to keep everything the way. Yeah, so just bear with me, guys, while I do this, and we will get started. Okay, so today's case for True Crime Corner is Chandra Levy. Now, those of you that may remember, this happened 20 years or 19 years ago. And she was an intern in Washington, D.C. at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And also, this has impacted basically all of Maryland and Delaware because it involves someone from Delaware. And I can remember this being on TV and watching this on the news as this case went on for, good gosh, several years after they found her because they were trying to find, they were investigating who could have possibly killed her. And there really isn't, this case is unsolved basically because they still don't have any idea who killed her. So we're going to get started, and we're going to start with her early life and just go on up from there. So just, sit back, drink your coffee, diamond paint, and enjoy. Now, she was born in Cleveland, Ohio, to Robert and Susan Levy. The family moved to Modesto, California, and she attended Grace M. Davis High School. Her parents were members of Congregation Beth Shalom, a conservative Jewish synagogue. She then attended San Francisco University, where she earned a degree in journalism. And after interning for the California Bureau of Secondary Education and working in the office of Mayor Richard Riordan, Los Angeles, the then Los Angeles Mayor Richard Riordan, she began attending the University of Southern California, where she earned a master's degree in public administration. So she's, pretty, what do you call it? Smart. So now after that, she then, after her final semester, she then moves to moves to D.C. to become a paid intern for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which I did not know that there are internships that, can be, that you get paid for. I did not know this. Goes to show how much I know. Anyhow, so in October, she began her internship at the Bureau's headquarters, and she worked there until 2001. Now, during her time at the Federal Bureau of Investigations, her boss was very pleased with her work, especially when especially the work that she did during the upcoming execution of Timothy McVeigh. And if those of you can remember, he was the one that was convicted of the Oklahoma bombing in Oklahoma City. So, but then in 2001 in April, her internship was terminated because her because it had her eligibility had expired in December of 2000. Now, she had already completed her master's degree, so she was scheduled to return to California in May of 2001. So now we're going to get into the case and so forth. Now, in May of 2001, she was last seen on May 1st, and the Metro Police Department in D.C. got a phone call from her parents stating that they had not heard from Chandra in 3 days. Did I just pour these out for no reason? Yes, I did. Oh, no, I didn't. So they, went over, or they called the hospitals. They visited her apartment. They didn't find any any sign of foul play, and they just basically, I'm assuming they were like, okay, there's nothing here. There's no reason. There's no, sign of anything happening. But then on May 7th, her father told the police that his daughter was having an affair with really was having an affair with U.S. Representative Gary Condit. Now, Levi's aunt also called the police and told them that Chandra had confided in them about the affair. So the police then in turn obtained an arrest warrant on May 10th to conduct a formal search of Chandra's apartment. And they found her purse, her ID, her laptop, her cell phone, and in the home. So obviously she was not left, she did not leave of her own free will. Because truthfully, if, I left, I'd make sure I had my, my phone, my cell phone, and my purse, and whatever. So they, and of course she had partially, and she was in the middle of packing. So obviously she had already planned to, she was, wasn't planning on leaving of her, she was planning on going to Modesto. So now, the answering machine was full. There were messages left by her relatives, and there were 2 from Representative Condit. So they then, a police sergeant, when they found her laptop, a police sergeant tried to access her, tried to examine her laptop, but he corrupted it, internet search data, because he wasn't trained. So now the computer experts, after a month, were able to reconstruct her the data to determine that her laptop had been used on May 1st of 2001. That's the last time that that it was used. to search for websites that were related to Amtrak, Baskins and Robbins, Conduit, Southwest Airlines, and a weather report from the Washington Post. Now, her final search area was at 12:59 p.m. was for the was for Alsace-Lorraine, which is a region in France. And this particular search at 11:33 a.m. Oh, wait a minute, excuse me. A particular search at 11:33 a.m. was for information about Rock Creek Park. So then at 11:34, she clicked the link to bring up a map of the park. And detectives later summarized that she might have met someone at the Pierce Klingel Mansion, which houses the park headquarters. Excuse me. On July 25th, 2001, three police sergeants, and 28 cadets searched along Grover Road in the park, but failed to find evidence that was related to Levy. Later, a second attempt, and they found nothing. And during all of this, her parents and friends and relatives held, numerous vigils, and they and numerous news conferences in an attempt to bring Chandra home. Now, her relationship with Representative Gary Conduit is it's a controversy. And I can remember this. There was a lot of controversy around the fact that she was having a relationship with a U.S. representative, and not only that, he was married. So, but, that apparently that's the thing. Now, like I said, he was married. He represented the district in which Chandra's family resided. And, excuse me. At first, he denied that he had an affair with her. Which, in a way, I'm not saying that, he was right to deny that. But in a way, I can see why he would. Because, number one, he's, this U.S. Congress or representative. He's married. It could look bad for his reputation and his career, which I get that. But then again, okay, you lied. That doesn't make it right. And that's that could raise a lot of red flags. But again, like I said, I fully get that part of it, but still, I don't agree with it. And I can remember there was a lot of news coverage about the whole thing, because it was crazy, because he was considered a suspect. I will tell you that much. I can remember that he was considered a suspect in this whole thing, and it was a long, drawn out thing. Now, the police stated that Conduit was not a suspect. Chandra's family said they felt Conduit was being evasive and possibly were hiding information. Now, there were police sources that were unidentified that admitted that Conduit had admitted to the affair. So, I'm assuming he probably felt like, okay, I really don't have a choice. I need to kind of admit this and just get it out in the open and be honest about it, because if not, I look even more guilty, which I hate to say this. He was kind of already, in my eyes, I felt he was guilty, and I'll explain as we go. He described her, he had an interview with the police. He described her to police as a vegetarian who had avoided drinking and smoking, and he thought that Levy was going to return to Washington after her graduation, and was surprised to find out that her lease in her apartment in D.C. was had ended. Investigators searched Conduit's apartment in July, and they questioned flight attendant Anne Marie Smith, who claimed that Conduit told her she did not need to speak to the federal bureau, to the FBI, about his personal life. Now, my question is, why would you do that? If you don't want to consider yourself a suspect and you're already in the spotlight for being a suspect because you had an affair with this woman, why would you tell somebody else, oh, you don't need to tell them about my personal life? In my opinion, if you don't feel you're guilty, yeah, I would, and you're in the spotlight being investigated as a possible suspect for this, I would have been honest. But, that's just me. So, they began to investigate him for possible obstruction of justice. And as apparent, now this is where it gets really, really, I did not know this, but the flight attendant was also having an affair with him. Okay. But she wasn't acquainted with Chandra. Now, he got upset. Representative Conduit got upset about leaks to the media, and he refused to submit to take a polygraph test, which, that's, in his right to do so. It's okay. It's whatever. His attorney asserted that Conduit passed a test administered privately, and that was hired by, I guess, his lawyer, and they, he avoided answering direct questions during an interview with, in August with Connie Chung. My God. So he's avoiding the subject altogether. Now, does that make him guilty? I don't know. I can't really tell you that one, because, to me personally, I'm just going to tell you, I really thought he did it. I still think he did it. But that, that's just my opinion. Because he was very, like they said, even in this, he was very, very evasive about the whole thing, about her and the affair he had with her, and all this, all of that, and it even, it makes no sense to me. But maybe it's politics. I don't know. But it just kind of, and then of course, he refuses to take a polygraph, but yet he has one, administered to him privately. That makes no sense to me. Why would you have, if you're not guilty, again, I'll say it, if you're not guilty, why not just be open and honest to everybody about the whole thing? If you're, if you're having an affair with her and so forth, then, I don't know. But that's just my opinion. So now, now this coverage continued all of this, the extensive coverage from the media continued until 9/11, until we were attacked on 9/11, and of course that superseded the whole media coverage. So now, in July of 2001, 44% of American respondents thought that Conduit was involved in her disappearance, and 27% felt that he should resign. And 51% of the respondents believed that he was acting as if he was guilty, and 13% felt that he should run again for office. On March 5th, 2002, he lost the Democratic primary election for his seat. He was subpoenaed to appear in April of 2001, or excuse me, April 1st, 2002, before a District of Columbia grand jury investigating her appearance. So either way, he wasn't really off the hook. Even though he, was in the middle of an election and so forth, they never really stopped. And of course, with 9/11, they never really stopped looking for, investigating the whole thing. Even though they had no proof that he was involved in it, but they did call him to testify. Okay, now the date was kept carefully guarded, a secret, to avoid leaks. He left Congress at the end of his term in 2003 after failing to bid his re-election bid. Now, on May 2nd, 2002, around 9:30 a.m., there were skeletal remains that were found. And they were found by a man who was walking his dog and looking for turtles in Rock Creek Park, near Broad Branch Creek. The detectives found the bones and personal items scattered but not buried in a forested area along a steep incline. There was a sports bra, sweatshirt, leggings, and tennis shoes that was recovered. The police had previously searched over half of the 1,754 acre main section of the park. The wooded slope where Chandra's remains were found had not been searched. That is the one place they didn't search. They could have probably found her sooner if they had searched that. So that was the one place that they did not get to, they did not search. So they ordered the search perimeters to be within 100 yards of each road and trail, but there was a miscommunication. The officers only searched within 100 yards of every road. The remains were found 4 miles from Chandra's apartment. And after the autopsy was performed, the police announced that there was sufficient evidence to open a homicide investigation into. So on May 28th, the medical examiner officially declared Chandra's death a homicide, but said, and I will quote, there's less to work with here that I would like. It's possible we will never know specifically how she died. He found damage to her hyoid bone, suggesting that she was possibly strangled, but he did not deem this to be conclusive evidence of such a cause of death. So technically, you really don't know how she was killed. They could say, okay, she was possibly strangled, but technically, you don't really know. I mean, it's, one of those things where it's kind of, and I think the only reason why they can't really say that she was strangled to death is because number one, her, there's not a whole lot there for them to work with. So now on June 6th, after the police completed their search, private investigators hired by Chandra's parents found her shin bone with some twisted wire about 25 yards from other remains. Um, Now, the police chief said that it was unacceptable that these items were not located. So, kind of tells me, how did her shin bone get 25 yards away from where her body was? That makes no sense. I don't know. Um, then they have, in May 2002, they had a memorial service for her, and that drew over 1,200 people. Speakers at the 90-minute ceremony included Chandra's brother, her grandmother, her great aunt, and many other friends and relatives. Then, about a year later, in May of 2003, her remains are buried in Houston, California, where there was a private ceremony. Now, we're going to get into the prime suspect. Now, like I said, they Gary Conduit was considered a suspect. But I don't know if they have I don't know if they put him aside for this next suspect. I don't really know. They never really came out and said. Now, in 2001, in September, they were contacted by a lawyer of an informant held in the DC jail, and he claimed to have knowledge of Chandra Levy's killer. Okay? So, now my next question is okay. Now, he he did not want his identity known just because of the fact that his safety, I guess, he was in danger or something. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this name, so I'll probably butcher it. He's a Salvadorian. He's from El Salvador. And his name is Ingmar Gondike. Don't ask. I don't know how to pronounce it. A 20-year-old, and he was from El Salvador, who was also being held in jail. And he told him that Conduit paid him $25,000 to kill Chandra Levy. So, as you can see, either way, somebody, um, they ruled out the story about Conduit because uh, Ingmar had already admitted to assaulting two other women in the same park where Chandra's remains were found. So he failed to show up for work on the day of Chandra's disappearance. Even though the police ruled him out, they still have him not showing up for work, and his former landlady recalled that his face appeared scratched and bruised around that time. The investigators on Chandra Levy's case did not interview the other Rock Park victims. The police chief avoided calling him a suspect and described him as a person of interest. So my question is, are they just saying that he's a person of interest and they're trying to go after Gary Conduit? I don't know. At this point in time, they don't say. Uh, he did tell the police chief did tell the reporters not to make a big deal about him. Assistant chief, the assistant chief had said that if Ingmar had been considered a suspect, they would have already been after him like flies on honey. Now, he denied, Ingmar had, like I said, I can't pronounce the guy's last name, so you're just going to have to let me go with his first name. Ingmar had denied attacking her. Now, on November the 25th, or 28th, the FBI had the informant take a polygraph, which he failed. So the informant was lying the whole time. The polygraph test that was administered on Ingmar, administered in February of 2002, returned inconclusive results that were ruled not deceptive because neither the informant or Ingmar was fluent in English. The DC chief detective said that he would have preferred the polygraph test to have been administered by a bilingual examiner who were unavailable at the time. So, see, in a way, I'm kind of confused here because it sounds to me like there was kind of little, minor screw-ups in this case to begin with, to start off with. Like when they went to her apartment, when they were searching her apartment, a police sergeant, tried to go onto her computer and corrupted the internet, whatever, on there. And then it takes a whole entire month for that. Now, you've got an informant who says, oh, this guy such and such killed, was paid by Gary Conduit to kill Chandra Levy, but yet when they take a polygraph, because they speak, Spanish or whatever, and they don't have, see, that's all screw up to me. But then again, I don't know. I could be wrong. I like I said, I'm not, but my thing is, if you're going to administer a polygraph test to somebody that is not fluent in English, I would at least have some kind of a translator or somebody that to me, that makes no sense as to why would you go ahead knowing that they can't really speak, English very well. It makes no sense to me. Now, the judge, when asked about Ingmar's potential connection to the homicide case, she said, this is such a satellite issue. To me, it doesn't have anything to do with this case. So now she sentenced him to 10 years in prison for his attack on the other two women. And he was sent to the U.S., the U.S. Penitentiary, Big Sandy, near Kentucky. And then was later transferred to the U.S. Penitentiary in Victorville, California. Wow. Now, the homicide has remained, it's still a cold case because, as far as I know, and if I remember correctly, they never did find anybody to charge with the homicide or anybody that, basically confessed to the homicide. So, this is still a cold case as of today. Gary Conduit has never been charged either. So now in 2007, they assigned a new team of reporters, and also in 2006, they replaced the lead detective. And then in the summer of 2008, they focused on, the police focused on the past failure of the police to fully investigate Ingmar's connection to the case. So as you can see right there, that they, like I said, there were tiny screw ups all over the place. So the result, where am I? In Rock Park Creek. So he's already, they've fully decided. Okay, we're going to just like investigate all this to see if these women are connected to, you know, the attack on Chandra and, you know, subsequently her murder. Da, 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 da. They ended up searching his prison cell in California, and they found a photo of Chandra Levy and that he saved from magazine. They interviewed several of his acquaintances and also witnesses of the Rock Creek Park incident. Then in 2009, in March, they issued an arrest warrant for him. So he was transferred back to Washington, D.C. 2 days later, he was charged with Chandra's murder. He was indicted by a grand jury on 6 counts of kidnapping, first-degree murder committed during a kidnapping, attempted first-degree sex abuse, first-degree murder committed during a sexual offense, attempted robbery, first-degree murder committed during a robbery, and he pleaded not guilty, where a trial date was set for January 2010. Now, he argued that the court, or his lawyers argued that Ingmar's federal prison cell was outside the jurisdiction of a court-ordered search. After errors in processing contaminated some of the gathered evidence with DNA from employees of the prosecution. And the start date of the trial was moved then to October the 4th. And now we're going to get to his trial. Now, mind you, it's still considered a cold case even though he's being tried, which I don't understand how that's possible. Only because of the simple fact that, he's already basically, attacked other women in the same park. So, okay, I get that idea. Now, da 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 da. I'm gonna have to sit this up, guys. So just don't pay attention to my phone. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I will move this up a little bit so you guys don't see my phone. There we go. So now on October the 18th, jury selection started. Then the assistant U.S. attorney Sanchez presented the names of potential witnesses for the trial. One of them being FBI agent Brad Garrett, and 2 women whom Ingmar was convicted of assaulting. At the start of the trial, the prosecution's case was expected to take around 4 weeks, and the defense was expected to take 1 day. I'm a little confused. Maybe, I don't know, but why? I don't know. Okay, is there a reason why the defense would take 1 day? I mean, don't lawyers, when you're when somebody's on trial, don't they have to like, you know, do examinations, cross examinations, and things like that? So that's what I'm trying to understand. Is why would it take 1 day? I don't know. So now, on October the 25th and the 26th, Haley Schilling and Christy Wingland testified about being attacked by Igmar while independently jogging in Rock Creek Park. And they Wingland recounted that he grabbed her from behind, dragged her down a ravine, and held a knife against her face. Now on September the 26th, 2010, Levy's then 64-year-old father, Robert, took the stand and refuted statements about his past suspicions of conduit. He testified that he had told authorities early on in the investigation that his daughter, Chandra, would have been too cautious to jog in the woods alone. But he said that he no longer believed this to be true. He also had told the police that his daughter and Conduit had a 5-year plan between them to get married. And in retrospect, Robert Levy admitted, I quote, "I just said whatever came to mind just to point him as the villain." He also added that he had been convinced that Conduit was guilty until we learned about this character here, referring to Igmar. On November 1st of the same year, Conduit testified that at the trial, and was asked on 3 occasions if he and Chandra Levy had been involved in a sexual relationship. And he replies, "I'm not going to respond to that question out of privacy for myself and Chandra." But the FBI biologist testified that there was DNA that matched his profile in her apartment, in her underwear. So obviously you can take that to mean, okay, yes, he did. So now, all this time, they're still kind of trying to put him as being the. It's confusing. And believe me, I was confused when I was watching the news on this, because I was just like, okay, if you say so. Because this whole case was just all like one big twisted, you know, crazy, warped. It wasn't warped, but it was very intriguing because, this is a woman that was an intern in DC, but also, you know, nobody knew at the time that she was having an affair with, this United States Representative Gary Conduit, and then, oh yeah, now she's missing. Now, there was a witness for the prosecution. His name, excuse me, his name was Armando Morales, and he shared a cell with Ingmar at the U.S. Penitentiary in Kentucky. And he testified that Ingmar was concerned about being transferred between prisons because of inmate violence against suspected rapists. Morales stated that Ingmar, a fellow member of the Mara Salvatrucha gang, confided to him that he did kill Chandra while trying to rob her, but said that he did not sexually assault her. So, as you can see, okay, my question is then, okay, I'm so thoroughly confused because if he did, if he didn't, but now, okay, I can see where, okay, he'll admit to that, but if he didn't do the if he robbed her, then why didn't, who did the other? Who did the sexual assault? Is what I'm trying to figure out. I'm, that's one thing I'll never understand. So now they rested their case on November the 10th, and they dropped 2 of the 6 charges against him. On November the 15th, the defense rested its case. They didn't even call him to the stand. So, I don't understand how, but anyway. Now, other prison witnesses called by the defense refuted Morales' testimony. Jose Manuel Alaniz said that Igmar had made no mention of the murder or the rape while sharing a cell with Morales at the penitentiary in Kentucky. He admitted under cross examination that he didn't want to be too nosy and was often asleep at the prison while recovering from a gunshot wound. The prosecution then dropped 2 more charges against him because of the statute of limitations. During closing arguments for the remaining charges of first-degree murder committed during a kidnapping and during a robbery, Amanda Hines, the prosecutor, contended that Ingmar bound and gagged her, Chandra, after attacking her, leaving her to die of starvation, and, or excuse me, leaving her to die of dehydration or exposure in the park. Now, the defense attorney countered with the lack of any DNA evidence connecting him to the scene. So, again, they don't have any kind of connection to him at the scene except for everybody saying, and all these possible witnesses saying, oh, he admits to doing this, and so forth. So, yeah. Um, the jury began their deliberation on November the 17th, 2010. And after 2 days, all but one juror voted to convict Igmar. And on the third day, the jury asked the judge to clarify the definition of assault. He responded that any physical injury could be legally considered assault, regardless of how small. The jury found him guilty on both remaining counts of first-degree murder. After the trial, a juror said that the testimony of Morales was decisive in reaching the verdict. Then there was an attorney that had previously represented Igmar in 2001, stated that she was troubled by the jury's verdict. She quotes, and I quote, "I just think that they were going to convict anyway. They felt bad for that woman, the mom. She's sitting in there every day." At post-trial press conference, Susan Levy said, and I quote, "There's always going to be a feeling of sadness, and I'm sure, or sadness, I can surely tell you, it ain't closure." Um, Now, her photographic remains have been kept sealed by the request of Chandra's mother. So nobody can, I guess, look, try to whatever, look at them or whatever. Now, of course, with every, conviction, murder conviction, and anybody that gets uh, convicted, there's always the sentencing, and then there's the, then they go for the appeals. And there was a 17-page filing. Uh, they requested a new trial. His attorneys have requested a new trial. That a verdict had been yeah, improperly attained. There was a 17-page file that claimed that the prosecutors had appealed to the emotions of the jury. Okay, how? Okay, come on, seriously? Think about it. You're talking about this woman who was, assaulted, killed, and left to die, and okay, whatever. And you're just gonna say that, oh yeah, based. Okay, that's, my sorry. Now, the motion also alleged that one juror who did not take notes had breached the judge's instructions not to be influenced by another juror's notes. Okay, I'm really confused. I don't understand the process, and, I'm not going to pretend to understand the process, but what does that have to do with anything? Some people may not. I'm confused. Of course, the prosecution opposed the retrial. He faced a minimum of 30 years to a maximum of life in prison without the possibility of parole. So basically, either way, he really wasn't getting out of it. Now, in seeking the maximum possible sentence, the prosecutor stated that Igmar is unable to control himself and will always remain a danger to women. Now, there was a memo that was submitted to the prosecution in February of 2011 that Igmar harassment of female staff in the prison, and also including soliciting a nurse, and masturbating in front of guards. Okay. Seriously, there's something seriously wrong with this man. Now, there's also something else that I found a little interesting about this whole thing. Now, Igmar, whatever his last name is, had supposedly, somewhere along the line, he had shared that he had fled El Salvador because of suspected attacks against local women dating back to 1999. So now that's another thing that they had to add to investigate to find out if that was true. Um, they do go there to investigate this. So now, during the sentencing in February, Igmar apologizes to Chandra Levy's parents. I'm sorry for what happened to your daughter, but he insisted that he was innocent. Um, Now, the judge reminded Susan Levy to address the court instead of looking at the defendant. So, Susan Levy said to him, "Did you really take her life? Look me in the eyes and tell me." Fisher denied his motion for retrial and handed down a sentence of 60 years, stating that he will be a danger for some time. He's repeated his innocence during his sentencing. He has maintained his innocence since the trial. Um, Now, in February of 2011, a a public defender, James Klein, filed an appeal to have uh, Igmar um, conviction, and according to the wait a minute. According to the court's annual report, appeals take an average of 588 days to reach a resolution. So in December, between December and January, a set of secret hearings were in between December 2002 and January the 13th, or January 2013, a set of secret hearings, were conducted, and but the subject of the meetings were sealed by the judge. After the third hearing in February, the judge in the case unsealed transcripts from the previous hearings, which revealed that Klein was seeking a new trial based on new evidence in the case. So there's new evidence in this case that I guess, and of course I never even knew this. Now, mind you, like I said, I had been watching, when I heard this happening to her, I was kind of like, okay. So now, they ended up dropping charges against him. This came because, number one, Armando Morales had perjured himself on the stand. Then they failed to disclose that he was a jailhouse informant with a reputation for being untrustworthy. So, yeah, that didn't work quite so well for them, as you can see. So now on June 3rd, 2015, the defense has a new witness. And this new witness, which is a neighbor, called 911 at 4:37 a.m. on the last day that Chandra was alive, in order to report hearing a blood-curdling scream, possibly coming from Chandra's apartment. Yeah. So now they 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 try to get the whole new case, basically, and all of this, they're still trying to have a whole new case, but instead they don't do that. They end up trying to have him. They end up going through the process of seeking to have Igmar, whatever his last name is, deported, or try to. So now, they're going through all that. They're trying to have him deported. And so basically, it doesn't say if he really did it or not, but they do try to have him he does end up going to jail for it, even though he technically really didn't. But then again, this whole case is kind of weird. And but yeah, so that's this case. It's really, really long, and I didn't want to go through all of the all of this, because it's crazy. So guys, that's that case. And I hope everyone enjoys. And my gosh, it was an hour long. Holy crap. So I hope everyone enjoys this, and if there's any questions, comments, please comment below. If you guys have any cases that you would like me to uh, talk about, please feel free to comment below. And until then, I hope everyone has a great week, and I will see you all next time.